afternoon and welcome to Awakened Wellness. Marie and myself will be co-hosting this show, and we're so glad that you can join us. Today's show is about guiding the journey. But as you know, we always have great feedback. Marie has fabulous stories to tell us about previous shows. So what have you got for us?
Well, actually, today's a little different.
Okay.
We're going to go right into the show because most of it is all feedback and
even better.
Solving.
Rolled right in.
So what happened was people have been watching the show and they asked me to do a show, so it's feedback on the show, on helping to deal with elder care.
Oh, another favorite topic of mine.
So it's guiding the journey, which is mindful caregiving for aging parents.
Okay.
So we're going to start with that.
All right.
Okay, so the first one was feedback from a client, and she's the aging person.
Okay.
So her and her husband are both starting to fail a little bit, and the daughter's got her some help 3 days a week, and it's from a veterans organization, and it's 3 hours each time. And the daughters are very upset with her because she sets things up for them when they get there, and she's doing too much work, and she's supposed to go sit and do something fun when they're there. And she's trying to explain to them that there's different people each time. They don't know where my food is to cook it. They don't know what to do with my laundry. They don't know where to put it. So they ask me a million questions. So if I pre-set it up, which is a lot of work for her.
Yes.
Right.
Then things go easier.
So there's a big clash there because they're saying she's not appreciating what's being done, but she's saying they don't understand the work it takes me to get there. So I asked her, I said, what is the most important thing to you? And she said a clean house because they don't clean bathrooms. I can't do my bathrooms anymore. And she went down the list. I said, so it sounds like the fact that you can't keep your house in order is the most important thing. I said, can you afford a cleaning person? And she said, yes, but there's none. We don't know anybody.
Okay.
And I said, I get that. I said, but would you consider a service coming in? Well, no, we don't want a service. We want a personal person. I said, well, let me give you a tip about a service. The best part about a service is there's a supervisor. And a company you can call when you have a problem. You don't have to deal with the person who's cleaning your house, so there's no conflict for you.
Right.
And sometimes when you get that personal person, you get too comfy with them, and they're not cleaning your house that way. And it becomes a conflict of interest. And she thought about it. She goes, well, I get that, and I would be open to that, but it's going to be hard for me to work with them to figure out what to do. I said, well, they come in and they assess your house. They ask you what you want done. I said, you can even have your daughters with you. She said, well, they live far away. I said, what if you FaceTime them when you walk the house? And she just sat there. She goes, that would work. That would work.
Ooh.
But now
ooh.
she's got to go to the daughters and approach it who thinks she's not being grateful for the 3 hours a week, 3 hours, 3 days a week. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So this is about mindful caregiving, meaning are you stepping back when you are involved in the caregiving situation to see if you're trying to push something or you want it your way versus what that person
really wants or needs.
or can do.
Yeah.
And can do. So there's a solution, but now there's still a whole nother step to the solution to get the loved ones involved and to come on board because they think she has enough.
Oh, how frustrating.
It's like that in every situation we're going to talk about. There's two sides to every story. But
And they're not always coming to the middle.
No, and we seem to think it's always the older person that's being the problem, but it's the way everybody sees the situation is the problem.
Right.
So this is working on what we could do. So in that situation, the funny part is the whole family is very spiritual and they all do mindfulness work.
I think they're missing something.
So it's about seeing that person with compassion and finding out what their true needs are to see how you can meet their needs, not telling them what they need.
Gotcha.
And trying to find what they need according to what you think.
Okay.
So with that solution, the solution would be for her to go sit with her daughters. Hopefully they're open enough and then they can try to rectify the situation.
Exactly. Well, that sounds, I mean, she met you halfway, and as you know, she threw up a few roadblocks. You were able to,
And she just kept thinking there were no options because this is the only option that's been thrown at her. So, yeah.
I like that idea.
All right. The next situation I've come across. These are all situations that have been coming my way, and I realized how important it is that people need a voice, and then the other side needs to listen.
Okay.
So now there's a woman who refuses to get her memory issues checked.
Oh. Okay.
And the husband can't broach it with her because that's just not good. The daughter tried to broach it and she had nothing to do with it. I'm not going to get checked, nothing. What do you do then?
Well,
It's a tough one, right?
That's a very hard one, one that I'm dealing with. It's hard because when you push too hard, a fight ensues, and generally the person with the memory issue is totally offended. They get angry, sometimes to the point where they're just screaming and yelling and not hearing anything themselves, but they're still avoiding going to the doctor.
There's a lot of fear. So what happened in this situation, a third-party person came in.
Oh. Okay.
And went to the person and said, I heard that your family's fighting you about you getting checked. Mm-hmm. And she says, yeah, they won't leave me alone. And she said, is there a reason? And she says, I just don't want to. And then she said, well, have you ever thought about them worried about you and how they're going to care for you if they don't even know what's wrong? Mm-hmm. And she just sat there. She goes, they want to help you, but they don't even know what's wrong.
Yep.
And you're afraid that it's Alzheimer's and you need meds, but it could be your blood sugar. It could be this. It could be that. Mm-hmm. It could be another med you're taking. It might not be a problem at all.
Right. But at least it could be ruled out.
Exactly. And she just sat there really quiet and said, well, I hadn't thought of all those things.
Ah. So the fear took over and the walls went up.
And as soon as a family member came, it was done for. There was no conversation happening because they're all trying to force me. Mm-hmm. But when the other
Outsider
party came in, there was an opening to change.
Nice. Well, nice that she would listen to the third person, because sometimes that's not an option.
It depends on how it's approached and if there's an opening.
Okay.
And that's where the mindfulness practice comes in. If you're struggling with a loved one, the first thing I would do is start my own practice and just ask to see what I'm not seeing. And then before I go into the room with them, I would ask if there's an opening, allow me to see it, versus me getting upset and putting my beliefs on them, because that's what keeps shutting down the conversation.
Gotcha.
So if you become the more mindful person, you can help that loved one.
Gotcha.
Because now you're going to see those openings you couldn't see before because you're not butting heads. You're going to open the energy flow between you guys for there to be openings.
Interesting.
Because you're going to be open to all possibilities in the conversation, not what you just want them to
or
hear.
what you think you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you think they should do because of A, B, and C. So it's a mutual relationship, but you're talking about somebody who's frustrated in where they're at.
Okay. I like that. I think that's really good advice. I like that.
You can't always fix the problem.
No.
Because I've been in situations that you can't. But there are a lot of them that they're just like this woman. If it just comes from a different way, it can happen.
There was an opening.
Right.
Yeah. Wow.
I've also seen the part where the family members only go the alternative route because they don't like the meds for the memory issues. And the family doesn't understand that care. So the more they push them toward the Western model, the more they push toward the other model. And then the dialogue really, I had, people I knew that it got so bad that she wasn't getting any of the care she needed.
Oh.
And it got really, really bad. And for me, I had ended up sending the husband to an alternative practitioner and said, look, I don't care how you treat her at this point, but refer her to a neurologist so he can at least get the support he needs to care for her.
Yeah.
And that alternative practitioner decided to treat her herself and didn't feel she needed the neurologist. So it got worse and worse.
Oh, dear.
And the family was really upset, and it just got really bad where there was no opening. Now, if I talk to the family members, they see it very differently. But when it was happening, the train just kept going, and it just gets so overwhelming. Because fear drives a lot of things.
Drives a lot of us.
And they just were pushing so hard because they didn't like what was happening that they kept shutting the dialogue down for there to be any openings. And this time when the third party came in, they chose to go a different path.
Okay.
And you can't always depend on that. You're hoping the third party is going to come in and be objective, but people have their own agendas.
True.
So that one threw that one in the wrong direction.
Oh, dear.
So again, when you're faced with anything like that, do your own practice.
Show me what I need to see, kind of like what we do with your own body as well.
Right.
If there's any openings.
Truly mean it. And if you meditate on that once a day, and then before you go in the situation with the loved one, ask to be shown the openings and take a nice cleansing breath and try to keep your mouth shut and just observe.
I was going to say, I literally was going to say, kind of think in a roll of tape.
Because the minute you start engaging, you lose your focus and the opening goes.
You're not sitting back and you're not observing and listening. That word you keep using with us, listen.
Right. Another one I have is a client was telling me the other day how her husband's starting to fail and the son doesn't like it. And he's just really upset with his dad when he can't figure things out. Because he's supposed to be able to, because he's dad, right? Because he doesn't like the situation. But the daughter's being really compassionate with the dad, and understanding that the dad's starting to fail. And she's stuck between the middle, trying to get them both to see that he's not as bad as she thinks.
And he's not as
good as he thinks. Right.
Wow.
So again,
That's
it's just
crazy.
if people have to start taking a step back, because the emotions overtake, and then you lose perspective on what's really going on, because of fear and you not wanting the situation to be.
Well, and also manufacturing stories in your head that make you feel better, but it's obliterating what's really going on.
Right.
Same thing again,
Yeah. And on that same line, I had another one where the wife would get so upset. I mean, she'd come see me and she was just mad at him because he couldn't figure out how to put the chicken in the oven or whatever. And I looked at her and I go, you do realize it's not his fault. And the more I talked to her, I realized she didn't have a support system. So I asked her, I said, do your children know? And she goes, no. And I go, why not? He asked her not to tell them.
Okay, but that's a punishment on her per se.
She didn't see it that way at first.
But it is.
But she didn't see it that way. She was respecting his wishes. And I said, with all due respect, what about your wishes?
Yeah.
You need the support system, and you have a right to find your people. He can't stop you from finding your people. His journey is his journey, but yours is also yours.
Correct.
You can say to him, I love you, but I have to do this for me.
Yep.
And it was bittersweet for her, but she understood, and as soon as she had that support system, it started to get easier.
Interesting.
So there's all these dynamics going on, and nobody knows what's going on. You go to the doctor for 15 minutes and they tell you this, and then you're home and you're stuck. What do you do now?
What do you do now? Yeah, well, knowing full well after, taking care of family members for 15 years so far and working on another 4, I totally get it, everybody. It's not an easy task, but I am liking these suggestions and advice, and I'm going to use them in full disclosure. Wow, how timely. Thank you. Who'd have thought?
Here's another one that came up twice in the last month.
Wow, this has been a big conversation, hasn't it?
It has been, just coming in and out. So I figured it's time to talk about it. 2 different people, their friends got very ill and terminal, and they didn't tell them.
Their friends didn't tell them they were terminal? Oh.
And they were very upset with their friends, and they were mad when their friends died. And I said to them, it's not about you. And she goes, well, that's kind of harsh. And I said, but it's not about you. You don't know their state of mind, if they could even handle that they were ill.
Yeah, what if they didn't fully comprehend what was going on?
Obviously they didn't, if they didn't go out to all their friends and broadcast it, and they wouldn't allow it to be broadcasted. But we take everything personal, and that's where we have to take a step back. So you have to have compassion for that person, saying, wow, it must be so hard that they got diagnosed. It must be so hard. If it were me, how would I feel about it? And start to really see how that person deals with life. And then you wouldn't take it personal that they didn't tell me I'm their friend.
Yeah.
Right?
Good point. They might not have been able to for whatever reason.
I mean, I've watched loved ones not deal. I can remember my dad. He would not go see anybody in the hospital. You just don't go see somebody in the hospital. It means they're going to die.
Yeah. I remember hearing that.
It was just the way it was. Yeah. And even if they were going to die, he wouldn't go see them in the hospital. I'll send him flowers. And I'm going to send him flowers. And I'm going, well, how do you think they're going to feel? He goes, nope, they're getting flowers. Because he couldn't deal with his own emotions. Okay. That's all it is. Again, taking it personally and putting it on yourself instead of what's the right thing to do or what would that person need. So most of these situations require a mindful practice on the caregiver's part. Because they get so overwhelmed because they want things to be the way they think they should and how this person should do things. But this person can only do so much. Gotcha. I was in the situation myself, and I had to think of the worst case scenario if things didn't play out the way I thought they should. And when I could finally accept the worst case scenario, I could take a step back and say, okay, it's going to be what it's going to be. They can only do so much. Right. So I can't force it on them. You can't change it. And their quality of life to them, even when I think is bad, they thought it was great.
Interesting.
Wasn't my quality of life and what I would want for myself.
Yeah.
But they weren't willing to change a thing about it, and they thought everything was just fine. So who am I
To force.
my beliefs
Yep,
on them?
on
Because if
them.
they came into my house and tried to do that to me, I would be angry like crazy with them. So I had to come to terms with a lot inside myself that it is what it is. And you can support however you can, but you can't fix it.
Gotcha.
You can't fix it. And we can kill ourselves trying to fix it.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a very hard-hitting episode. Goodness gracious, there's so many of us, and not everybody can, put their loved one in a nursing home or a care facility. There's not always space.
Right.
Or there's not the monetary. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, and so, goodness.
The next one has come up many, many times. When they are terminal and they say they're ready to go, and they don't go. Why aren't they going? Why are they still here if they want to go and they say they're ready?
Unfinished business? Or you're hanging on to them? There's guilt.
Well, what if I tell you to die? How are you going to die?
How am I going to die?
Well, you're telling them they should know because they say they're ready.
Well, you can't.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, we think they should know because they say they're ready.
Yeah.
But where's the door? How do you open the door?
Yeah. How do you know you're ready? Where was that form you filled out that said, this is how you know when you're ready? Sign
You
here.
don't know how many times that has come up. Why are they still
That
here?
many?
Really? They keep saying they're ready. Why are they still here? Why haven't they gone yet? And it all goes back to the mindfulness practice of knowing yourself and feeling that energy and knowing what you feel like. So when you are ready to go, you'll feel that energetic pull and you'll go. But if you've never felt it before,
You wouldn't know what it was.
you're just going to wait for something to happen, but you don't know what that something is.
Gotcha.
I find the people that are the strongest in who they are, that don't fall prey to society and quick fixes and know their truth and have always guided themselves by intuition in life, have no issues. Because they just know. Because just like they knew that that was the right spouse for them, or they just knew that, because they've listened their whole lives, so they just know.
They've always been mindful.
They've always
With
been. You don't
with
need
themselves
my
first
mindful
full.
practice to do
Right.
it. Some people just are strong in who they are.
Boy, this just gets more fascinating.
So I
about
ask people, well, why do you think they should know? Well, where do you think they're going to go? How are they going to go there? In my book, The Missing Piece to Health and Age, I tell a story about a man who was doing that exact thing. His mother kept saying, I'm ready. And she was in her late 90s. And he goes, she just won't die. And she's so angry she's here. And everything else. I said, well, why don't you ask her what she thinks it means to die? Do you ask her how she thinks she can die? Why does she think she's ready now? And he wouldn't ask her any of those questions. And then one day he took her home for Thanksgiving, and it's in my book. And she started doing it in the car again, and finally he asked her all those questions. She had Thanksgiving dinner, and he got in the car with her on the way home, and she died in the back seat.
Really? Because he asked the questions.
Because it made her think.
And yeah.
So it must have opened some doors that she could feel and sense stuff that she didn't know was there.
Wow,
And it opened him up too. Because he's just mad at her because she kept saying she wanted to die and she didn't want to be here anymore, but she wouldn't die. What is she waiting for? She doesn't know.
Holy cow.
She doesn't know.
Really
None
good
of us
point.
know.
Where's that book? How to Die?
Yeah. Nobody knows.
No.
But like I said, the ones that are the strongest in who they are and have made peace with themselves usually go the easiest.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Because they've always guided themselves that way.
Not always looking to that other person for the advice or the how-to.
Right.
Or,
Right.
being able to answer those questions yourself.
Right.
Which is what your shows are all about. So how we
The
can all
more
make...
you guide yourself from inward, the more that stuff becomes easier in the end.
Interesting.
And you know when to stop your treatments. You know how to support yourself. Yeah. And you're not alone.
When to ask for help and
your
when
loved
not
ones
to.
can come forward and be with you and all those things. But that's a whole nother show.
Yeah. That is another show.
Okay. This is another one.
Oh my goodness. I am so shocked at the amount of
Oh, it goes
people.
on. It goes on.
This is great.
Another one that I found, and I've even experienced myself, when someone's failing, their short-term memory goes. But then their long-term memory's in there.
Correct.
Some of the things that happened as a child, at times that weren't politically correct, some of these things get blurted out. In today's world, we're not very compassionate to that. And I've seen people angry with I had one woman so angry with her father because of the things he was saying and he was talking about, because she didn't realize he was that bigoted, and she was just thought he was a horrible person. And that wasn't the father she knew, because he had changed, but the memories had come
back. He had gone back to that at that point.
I saw a similar thing happen with my dad, and he was saying some things, and my niece was not okay with it because she's Black. But he didn't know he was saying it, because he didn't feel that way anymore, but it was etched at a moment in time. And we have to, again, if with a good mindful practice, you would know that. You wouldn't take offense to it and start labeling that person.
That's not what they think right now.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Interesting. Or they latch on to, I've noticed with different family members and friends that are taking care of the elderly parents and family members, that they're often triggered by things that happen on the TV. And that gets them going as well. And
It can.
That they've said, I have to change the channel because they get so angry, with what's going on. And or then they go back to that time where that long-term memory is, and they blurt things out. So
and that's why we call it guiding the journey, because you're there to just guide where they're at, where their life was and what it's become and how they're going to end. You're not there to fix them or change them or try. You're just
make the journey
them
a little less bumpy.
Yeah, because we want to fix it. We want them to do what we want them to do. I have a friend who's, her in-laws right now, they're not letting help in, they're not letting anything, and they keep trying and they keep putting it up, but nobody said to them, do you feel like things are hard? What would make you, like that first woman, what would make it easier for you? What are you willing to do versus what we're asking you to do?
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's a big
questions
deal.
we want to be asked, but we don't ask them.
The last one's the hardest one.
Okay.
Estate planning and things like that.
Oof,
where the kids don't want to hear it. The parents are trying to tell them, I did this, it's in this place. No, we don't want to talk about death. We can't handle death. Or the parents won't do it.
Won't do it,
Won't do it. What do you do then, right?
Hope that you can take care of stuff. Or
so if you're the one
easily
supporting the elderly, you need to have your mindful practice in check. So you can see they really need to tell you. They want you to know.
Yep.
They want you to know what they've done, so you'll be okay to handle things.
Right.
If there are people that won't handle it, again, the mindful practice, because you have to sit and ask to see what you need to see of what's stopping them, and it's usually a fear of death and not wanting to talk about it.
Right. Right.
So how do you open that door is what you have to ask to see. And sometimes it might be just all of a sudden you took them out to lunch and there was an opening for a conversation that you never knew existed, because you've opened the energy lines for that to happen.
It's not always sitting in the house, sitting at the table and saying, okay, we're going to talk about this.
And just make sure in any of these situations, if you're going to bring up these topics, that you already know some of the things they can do. Don't go in there and say, well, now we got to figure it out, because they're just going to shut down.
Right.
If you are interested, I know
solutions.
Somebody who could do
Right.
this. Or if you're interested, I know that this is the way my friend did it. Or,
What do you think?
because they need something to hold on to other than we got to do this.
Gotcha. Wow.
But a mindful practice can mitigate a lot of this for the caregiver.
Which is an education we all need.
Yeah.
That we need to practice in order to be able to facilitate this. Wow.
Yes. Yes.
Ooh, this has been a really hard subject.
It is a hard subject, but it's a necessary
Yes.
subject. I mean, I've been through it and it didn't go well for me because of my situation, but I've been through it on another end with my in-laws, and that was a wonderful situation because they were different people. So, and
You've seen both sides.
I've seen both sides. I see people suffer a lot. I see people not supporting each other because they just want the other one to do what they want them to do, one way or the other.
And that's not the way it goes.
Well, like I said, I don't want anybody coming in my house telling me what to do.
No.
So
no, don't
what's
like
going to
that
work?
either.
What do they need specifically, not what you want them to have?
So tell your followers, our followers,
awakenwellness.life.
.life.
.life. It's up and running, so it's getting more information on it all the time.
And is there a tab, or where could they find a little bit of this information?
I
or
haven't
wait
put
for the
that
show?
out there yet, but
well, then as soon
once
as
the
this
show comes out, I will. And I did
Good.
start making a section of topics, like, because I'm going to do another one on acupuncture. We did chiropractic, so I'm going to make an actual specific for
Nice.
certain things. on
Good.
there.
So stay tuned. I'm excited for this. I did pop on to, forget what I popped on to, but I signed up for something. I finally was able to find the time, and I really liked the website.
Oh, thank you.
I found it easy on the eye. I found it not challenging, because there's nothing worse than going to a website and you're like, what do we do? What do we do? Where do I go? And it just flowed. So
you.
kudos. I liked it very much.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. And I hope you join us again for the next show, and enjoy mindful wellness. Be mindful and ask to see what you need to see and what you need to know. Have a great day.